All right, welcome to the show, Marianne. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Marianne, I like to get started by getting to know you a bit.
Mhm,
Of course, we can look at your LinkedIn profile and see what the old resume says, right? But we
mhm.
want to we want to know a little bit more of the background to that first. So, you're at the credit union as an HR director, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, tell us about how you got there and what you do.
Okay. So kind of a long story on how I got here. As you can probably tell from the accent, I'm not an American native. I was originally born, grew up in England, and when I was about 16, decided I wanted to be a chef. I spent some time working at a local hotel restaurant, really focused on some baking and pastry and that kind of thing. My dad decided I should get a degree, which
Mm.
I was not too happy about at the time, but turned out to be probably one of the best adventures I've had. So very, very grateful that he pushed me to do what I did. Originally went to school for culinary arts and then changed to hospitality management. I've worked front desk, kitchen, restaurant, all sorts of areas of hotels. The thing that really drove me was the human resources side. So, any trainings that I got on human resources, I absolutely loved and adored. I decided that 80 to 100-hour work weeks were not good for my mental health. So, I stopped those. I decided that the area that I really loved was numbers and the people. So, I ended up with a part time bookkeeping position, and got a second part-time bookkeeping position, and that company wanted me on full-time. They were having some turnover issues and had no one in HR, so I said I will come on full-time if you allow me to take on HR as well, because that's really where I found a passion. So they did that. I worked for them for 4 years, which was an incredible experience, and then ended up moving out of Vermont and came to Arizona and looked for HR positions while I was here. And this was actually the second offer that I got in the space of 1 week, and
Mhm.
decided that this was where I wanted to go. Got the job as an HR generalist and have been since promoted and have a new HR assistant as well, which she's been doing great. Yeah, very, very busy.
I believe
Yeah.
it. So, how big is your department right now then?
So just the two of us.
All right.
Yeah.
And you get
Yeah.
to help how many employees?
60.
60.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many locations do you have?
We have two locations. We had three at one point, but during my time here, we ended up downsizing. But we were able to keep all of those employees at that other location and reintegrate them into other areas, which was good for us.
Hmm.
So two locations, one main branch and then one east branch.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you and your assistant, what are now? I know how this question sounds because I've been there, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
Because I know that you have to deal with all aspects of HR. But
Mm.
what would you say are your main aspects of HR that you get to deal with right now?
Well, currently we're coming up to the end of the year. So right now it's budget, health insurance, renewals, and making sure that I can get the compensation strategy approved by the board. And yeah, so focusing on that with the CFO right now.
Mm,
Mm, fun stuff.
wow.
Yeah, I actually love compensation strategy and making sure that we're trying to optimize our benefits for our employees.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely a need for somebody to like it and be good at it, right?
Right. Yes, my assistant's very good at the day-to-day face-to-face employee things,
Hmm.
and then I'm able to get my analysis stuff done, which I really enjoy too. So
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Now, is this your first time being a manager, or have you been one before?
It's the first time as an HR manager, but I have managed. I was a general manager of a hotel, which was when the 80 to 100-hour work weeks came in.
Mm,
I've also managed front desk as well in hotels too. So
okay.
yeah.
No, this is good because and we're just going to take this angle for a second.
Mhm.
Being a manager, period, and maybe a newer manager, at least in this regard, let's talk about how, maybe some common concerns, maybe some common fears that we don't often talk about, right? Most often when we're promoted to manager, we say, all right, I got this, we're going to make it all work, yada yada. But if we're honest, there's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Mhm. That really is.
And it's like, well, I'm still trying to figure out my job. How am I supposed to tell somebody else what to do?
Exactly.
So let's talk through that.
Yeah. So I am very big on learning opportunities and trying to soak up as much learning and knowledge as I possibly can. I have realized that something new is always going to come up, something that I've never dealt with before, which is, yeah, things that I would never have thought of happening have happened. And trying to manage those situations is definitely difficult at times. I found that taking that step back and not getting caught up in the emotions of the situation is very, very important, and something that I really try to drive over to the leaders as well. Because if you say, oh, this happened, and oh, I'm so angry, and then you react on that, it tends to be the wrong reaction. So your initial one should be to take a step back, take a breath, and say, if you're not sure about something, tell the employee that you'll get back to them, and you want to make sure that you give them the right answer. Policy and procedure is always very easy to fall back on. Obviously, sometimes there's going to need to be exceptions, and talk to HR as well. Include them because they could have good advice.
Right.
But yeah, there's always going to be other managers that have been in a similar situation, and so leaning on those other supervisors for support is always a good direction to go to.
Awesome. I love what you brought up about the emotions in decisions, right? With with the executives, the managers, with whoever. So can you go into that a bit more? Maybe either your experience or something that you've seen on how emotions were handled well and how they were handled poorly?
Yeah. So I've been doing HR for about 6-7 years now. So I've definitely seen a lot of positive and not so positive experiences. There was definitely one where a manager was frustrated with what his employee was talking about and felt very personally attacked, even though when we were able to take a step back, it wasn't a personal attack. It was really just I wish this would happen. That manager went over to talk to the employee, stood very close to them, very close. And, this is really frustrating. You shouldn't be talking about this. Very bad reaction, because then things blew up, which ended up with me getting involved and having to calm things down again. And okay, what actually happened? Let's go through everyone's point of view. Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in, but definitely try and hold your emotions back a little bit. When I've seen it work well, I don't see that very often, because when it's done well, I'm not normally involved.
Good point.
But I have been in meetings where supervisors have been able to say, okay, well, thank you for your feedback. I will take that to heart. Just bear in mind that there are some legal aspects that we have to work within. So there's not always going to be that outcome that you specifically want. And then we do have to look at all sides of the story. And that has always been a positive thing, when employees feel like they've been heard with their issues. And that's when things tend to resolve better.
Right. So you mentioned when the employees were, having that situation that didn't go so well, and you had to hold your emotions back. Tell me about that. What does that mean, and what have you seen with it?
So generally it means taking a deep breath, especially just knowing that it's not about you, and having that ability to separate yourself from the issue at hand, because most often it's not about you. It's not about how you've done something wrong. It's about how the employee has perceived it and how you guys can communicate better together and reach that resolution. Quite often taking that deep breath helps, and then focusing more on, okay, you said this, let's focus on the active listening rather than what I'm wanting to say in response to that. Asking the questions and then making sure that you're trying to get their side of the story first.
Mm-hmm. So this reminds me, it brings up some good memories. Sometimes I find that it's easier to do something for somebody else than it is for yourself sometimes. So let me make that even clearer. The way you were talking totally reminded me of the past, where, yeah, I was able to help these managers too and keep the emotions separate and just say, okay, here's the issue at hand. I'll listen to you and we'll resolve it. Magically, it's done. That's why I'm good at my job.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go to ourselves, and how often do we take care of our own emotions, and do we do it well? Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe then we live in the mindset of, well, I don't have time to deal with these emotions, or I can't have emotions because I'm supposed to live at this level, or I don't know, some sort of mindset that's keeping us from addressing those. And then instead of holding back our emotions so that we can resolve a situation properly, we hold on to those emotions and it affects us later. Can you speak to any of that?
Oh yeah. I'm a big stress eater. I've been trying to work on that myself. It's not easy. But one of the things that I tell other people to do is take a walk, go take a breath, think about why you're upset, like what has triggered that reaction in you, so that we can then resolve that area of it. Make sure you're taking your lunch breaks as well, because people that just tend to keep working and focus on only that don't have that time to resolve their own feelings. Easier said than done. I tell other people to do that more than I'm able to do myself, but it's something that I'm consistently working on, and do have outside people reminding me that, did you take a walk today? Like, oh no. I know I've told my boss in the past, like, you know what, I'm having a very stressful day. I'm going to go take a lap around the block and I'll be right back. And he's perfectly fine with it. So everything that I encourage in my employees, he knows that I encourage that, and he tries to push me in that direction as well, which is always a good thing. So taking that mental break and not continuously like pushing stuff and pushing yourself as well, because if you're not taking those breaks and you're not taking your own feelings into account, you're not going to be as productive as you could be, because you've got the stuff going on in the back of your head constantly, and it gets exhausting.
Exactly. Okay, I love what you said about how you have people reminding you of how to take care of your own mental health. You mentioned your boss, which I think is fantastic. You have a boss that's supportive like that.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing who else you might have?
Yeah, I have, it's generally people outside of work. So I have a nutrition coach, and if she sees a spike in some sugar intake in the day, then she'll be like, hey, what happened here? Why didn't you take care of yourself? Like, make sure that you're being more mindful of that tomorrow. Just so that it kind of gets me in that habit of looking for it myself. My boyfriend in my life, he's very supportive of that. So if I get home and he can see I've had a rough day, he'll walk with me wherever I need to go. He'll give me my hug, and all that things. You just got to be able to start being comfortable telling people when it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I think it's refreshing just to hear of these examples. I think sometimes either we don't realize that we can have that type of help because maybe we've never had the boss that's that supportive. We don't have a lifeline, as it were, somebody who can help us out. So maybe we're just not used to that. So hearing those examples is awesome. One other thing is, I'm curious to know, because not everybody has the mindset that you're talking about, where, hey, it's okay to take care of myself. And I encourage it in others. I do it for myself because I know of its importance. Some people, and nothing against them, it's just, where they are. And I was there, so I can totally understand. Some people are like, why in the world do I need to talk about this kind of stuff? I'm busy. I have better things to do. Right?
Yeah.
So can you share with us how this idea of mental health became important enough for you to, make it part of your life?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I know I've been there. I like I said, I've worked 1,800-hour weeks and focused just solely on making sure that the business was running. I've done that here as well. I get into my ruts occasionally where I am just focusing on work, and not taking care of myself. But I guess my catalyst was when it started affecting things outside of work as well. I train in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu outside of work. And when I'm injured and I cannot train, I notice a big difference in myself as well. I know that outside has been helping me. And then when I start feeling more exhausted and I start getting a little bit snippy in my relationships outside of work, and I'm starting to come to work and not be happy being here, is when I really realized that I really need to do what I'm saying to other people to do, because I know it's important. It's just other things get prioritized, and it's very easy to push things back. But it's really taking that step for myself outside of work started to come into my work as well. So it was having that outside influence, like my nutrition coach being like, okay, well, are you being mindful all of the time, or is it just when you're outside of work and when you're training and you have nothing else that you can think about because you're about to, get punched in the face? Little things like that. And then I've had therapy as well. I talk to people outside of work, and she also goes through, okay, make sure that you're doing body scans throughout the day, because you know that this is what you physically feel when you get frustrated. So being able to be aware of that is going to help. And it has to be a 24/7 thing rather than just when I have time thing.
Thank you. One other question that comes to my mind. Let's say maybe there's a listener that is listening to this and saying, oh my goodness, I'm starting to realize that I haven't taken care of my mental health the way that I need to. And they could fall into two categories. This could be the first time they're realizing that, oh my goodness, I need to take care of it. Or it can be somebody who's kind of been on the up and down, right? Hey, I've taken care of my mental health really well. I've learned it. I've done a great job, but I've let it go recently. So now there's this added measure of guilt saying, oh, I know better, but I haven't. So in both of these situations, there's a little bit of guilt saying, oh, I should have done better. And maybe a little bit of shame too, saying, I knew better. Why haven't I done this? So what kind of advice would you have for somebody like this as they're coming to this realization?
I would say start small, give yourself some grace, because no one's perfect 100% of the time. We all know that. Take little breaks occasionally. Don't start with like full force, like, okay, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to make sure my diet's really clean. I'm going to take my walks. I'm taking all of my lunch breaks, because that's going to get overwhelming very quickly, especially when you've been in this mindset of, well, I have to do this and I've got this to do and this and this and this. So if you take a 5-minute break, set an alarm, 10 o'clock, go for a walk, go get some water, come back. That's your nice little, I've moved for the next hour. Uh, so start small, make sure that the goals aren't crazy, unreachable, and make sure that you're not expecting too much too quickly, because the expectations of, well, I should be able to do this and I should be able to do this becomes, why am I not doing that? And then making it worse for yourself. So really just the small steps are the things that should be celebrated.
Yes. I also like what you said earlier about the breaks and having to make them sacred, right? If you schedule them and you've given yourself permission for the idea of taking one, then do yourself a favor and take the break, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've got to follow through. You've got to realize its importance for you as well. Yeah.
So what you're saying about starting small is huge, because I mean, one aspect, we're getting over this hump of guilt, let's say, right? And if I'm not used to taking 5-minute breaks, how am I going to be okay taking half the day off, right? And so if we're just as a company saying, well, I think we should mandate every Friday off for people's mental health, then it's a good principle. But somebody may be having that day off and being stressed the entire day, saying, oh my goodness, I think I should be at work. Am I behind on emails? Blah, blah, blah. And then it's the detriment instead of a benefit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that you brought to my mind is with these breaks that we plan to have, and I can speak from experience too, my goodness, where I plan a break and I know the principle behind it. Hey, I should take a break to sharpen my saw, to take a breath, to go stand up or whatever. But it's easy to say, well, I'm busy. I'm okay if I don't take it. And then I move on. And then it has the potential of being another type of guilt. Oh, I didn't take my breaks today. I can't believe it. I didn't keep my promise to myself, right?
Yeah.
So as I'm saying this, people might be hearing, oh man, this is complicated, because it's a big spiral of things that can get worse and worse, right?
Yep.
But to your point, start small, take those steps, celebrate each step, know that you're not going to be perfect, and just improve, 1% every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. 1% every day. That's the habits book.
Right.
Yes, Atomic Habits. That's the one.
Great
1%
book.
better. Yeah, no, those little things really do make a huge difference, and it starts to give you permission to do it in a bigger way as well. So you're like, oh, well, I took 5 minutes for myself and nothing happened. My emails were still there when I got back. Nothing caught on fire. It was fine. I might be able to take 10 minutes next time. And yeah. And then once you can get into that mindset of the work will still be there when you get back. And it's just a case of prioritizing at that point. And it becomes a lot easier and you can give yourself a lot more grace that way.
Right. Okay, well, Marianne, this has been great. You've given very simple but applicable ideas and ways for us to take care of ourselves. I very much appreciate it.
Of course.
Do you have any final thoughts or words of advice on this subject of, hey, as you want to grow, as you want to reach your ultimate potential, become who you know you can be, here's some words of advice.
Don't try and do it yourself. Make sure that you have other people knowing what your goals are and being able to help nudge you in that way, especially at work, because we can be so focused, especially in HR, we can be so focused on making sure that other people are doing what needs to be done for their mental health that we forget to take care of ourselves. So make sure you've got those people on your team that will be able to push you and prod you. And even if you don't think that they care about your day or you don't want to share with them, just tell them, hey, I'm trying to take care of myself. I need your help to make sure that I'm doing that and I'm following through. So it's always good to have people on your team.
I agree, and that's excellent advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, good to talk to you too. Thank you, Ben.